Second Avenue centers on 5 homosexual characters, friends living in San Francisco. But it mainly centers on our lead character, Alex, who is, really dealing at the beginning of the show with an existential crisis where he loses track of his identity as a homosexual through delusion, through magical thinking, by falling in love with a straight man. And with a little help from his friends, the supporting characters of the show, he begins to realize that he has to grow up and mature once and for all. When he least expected he would have to. You know, he's 25, living in the city, having a good time, and suddenly here comes life. And for a lot of people, I think that's a simple truth. You know, we don't expect to have to mature when we do. But I mean, that's basically what this show centers on. I think because the story itself will concentrate on the real mysteries of life. The mysteries that don't involve facts, but feelings, emotions that a lot of people find themselves grappling with, you know. I think a lot of people have a sense of, or know what it means to have to deal with things like magical thinking and the unreality of life, and not facing up to what comes with maturity, which is realizing that you have a place, a role to play, and that by accepting that, really you have to define yourself as a human being. It's really a generational story, because I think it speaks to a lot of issues that people our age are dealing with. You know, it's a confusing time. We're dealing with a very modern world where it can be hard sometimes to see where you begin and where you end. And I think that's ultimately what the story speaks to. I mean, it deals with this in a psychological fashion. You know, the characters, the writing's deeply rooted in the psychology of the characters. So I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of good feedback. But I've put in a lot of work. I mean, I've kept journals for characters and their voices. You know, I've given them histories. I've figured out what their parents do for a living, how their parents make money. You know, how they were supported themselves through college. You know, very specific things. So that way I could, when it comes to writing dialogue, just have something to fall back on. I would know what they have to talk about. I would know who they are as people. And so that way I could throw them into any situation.
You emotionally connect with them?
Oh yeah, totally emotionally
As
connected.
if they were real people?
As if they were real. I mean, specifically, I was picturing an audience age range of 18 to 35. But more specifically than that, I was writing it for a young gay audience that may be living in the Middle West of the United States, that sees people like Michelle Bachmann on television and think that they're not a part of a social order that has decided that they're not allowed to participate. I want them to be able to turn on a television and see that there's a world for them, you know, that
there's hope for the future for them.
Well, yeah, but that for some people, homosexuality isn't a specific thing. It isn't worth castigating someone over. It is, in fact, a way of life. That it's okay for them to be who they are. That they don't have to worry about it. That, sure, it's hard to find your own identity, you know? I mean, that's everyone goes through that. But for them specifically, it can sometimes feel like it's the world set against them, you know? And so really that's what it's written for. You see things like gay teen suicides today, and, you know, the statistics are terrible. But, I mean, if this project were to accomplish anything, it would be to show them that, you know, there's more for them out there. You know, that there is hope, sure. But it really comes down to them.
I'd say take a good solid week of scouting locations. A lot of them are local to San Francisco, pretty much all of them. And there's not very many of us for the actual crew, so a couple of us guys running around together scouting locations, I think we can get that done pretty quick in about 1 week. Permits, I'd say, might take a little bit longer, but I'd give that about 2 weeks.
Since we're shooting on...
Since we're shooting on stuff such as the Muni and the BART, places like a Pizza Hut, you know, you probably have to know the people. We got a couple friends here and there, so we're going to try to really network so we don't have to get too many permits and we can just run in and run out, you know?
How are we shooting it? What type of... Are we shooting film or digital?
Shooting all digital. We got a couple cameras. We got, you know, all your basic little DSLRs with your lens attachments that we're going to make this look real clean and nice and professional given the fact that we're cheap students and we don't have that much money. We got those digital audio recorders such as a Zoom H4n. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. Simple stuff, sync it up later. A lot of us know how to edit, so that's going to be quite easy. We're just going to be able to get together and have some editing parties with a cherry on top and really make it happen. One aspect of our production is a car scene in which we're going to need a process trailer. Usually this isn't too difficult to get, but seeing as we are students and don't have too much money, a large portion of the budget may have to go to this. Try to pull some strings, get some favors, but that is going to be one of the more difficult problems that we're going to face during shooting. We're going to use a lot of websites to our advantage as we are technologically savvy, being in our generation. Borrowlenses.com, camerarental.com if we had to. A lot of our friends, you know, they have a wide variety of gear that we're able to borrow from. Luckily, like one person will have a good lens and will be like, hey man, let me borrow your lens. And they'll be like, sure dude. So, you know, we just really want to resource more and not have to spend a lot of money via buying all the crap to use and just make a professional product. So when I took 310/316, I had to spend like 150 bucks sending one roll of film over to Photochem, getting it back, getting that stuff telesened up by Warren up there, and that was really just not fun. So we are shooting on digital. It's much easier for us to shoot on digital. It's a lot cheaper. We don't have to wait. We can instantly just pop our SD card right in, and it just makes more sense for the quality that we're gonna bring to
And also,
the TV.
you know, if we miss any shots, do a quick reshoot.
Yeah.
You know?
If we miss any shots that we don't know of, we can just edit this quickly and securely and just go out and get another shoot. So our locational scouting is really just around the Bay Area here. We're not using a studio or soundstage. Every single shot and scene is going to be on location. So we're going to really need to use, you know, BART, Muni. We're going to have to get permits for that. We're going to need to scout houses here in San Francisco and one in the East Bay for Alex's house. Scheduling conflict that we may possibly have is we're shooting with 3 children, and so we're going to need a welfare agent to be in control of them throughout the day. That can be a pretty big hassle, seeing as this is one of the first films that we're going to make. We're going to have to pay attention to little kids running around the set. We're going to have to make our shooting schedule based around the children at some point, which is going to be a big kind of wrench in our little gearbox here, because we have to put them first and make sure that they get enough hours in the day and that they're fed and everything. And, you know, our shots are going to revolve around them at some point. We're strictly using non-guild and non-union actors. That's important because a lot of our actors are going to be coming from sfcasting.com. We want to make sure that we keep it local without having to delve into the bigger seas.
And it will also decrease our budget.
This will indeed help decrease our budget. So, we're fresh out of college. We have no more classes or tests to do anymore. Really, we didn't have the biggest emphasis on production during our schooling here, but what we did do is we still continued to make movies, and we continued to network with people that we met in class and at the school. So our main focus is networking and borrowing and lending out, renting, in order to get the equipment that we need to fulfill our goal of the production. Because we have set our sights high and our script is pretty darn detailed, so we're going to need adequate resources in order to compensate that. We're going to be using resources like American Conservatory Theater in order to get costumes, cheaply and affordably for us. They have a very wide variety and selection of costumes that we could use to our advantage for what we're going to be filming. And it's here local in the city. We're going to be using Prop City in Brisbane to get a lot of our props. We really don't have too many hard props that aren't something that you could find in your garage or in your household. Water bottles, cans of WD-40, blue scarves, cowboy boots, things of that nature. But for the things that we do need, we're going to be able to stay local and get things cheap and affordable at student rates.
Love, light, giving rain, nourishing us as she nourishes the crops.
Oh, great energy of wind, living spirit around us, between us.
All right, so after going over, the script, breaking it down, trying to work out a budget, doing some research, we came to the conclusion that the average budget for a film would, approximately be $250,000 to $500,000, and we wanted to keep this independent, maybe open up an opportunity to be picked up by a network or a company to create some episodes. So we wanted to take at least 10% of that and make it our budget. So right now we're projecting around $25,000, maybe around the range of 27 for incidentals or anything like that. Well, we want to have a pilot episode that is TV quality, but being emergent filmmakers or having the constraints that we do, we're trying to take at least 10% of an average budget and try to use that 10% into our pilot episode.
Why 10%, not 20%?
Funding for a project, especially an independent project with very few investors, is difficult to raise money, and trying to keep it minimalist. All right, so to keep the budget minimalist, or as we say minimalist, we're trying to use our networks from SF State, or friends of friends that know film, that have experience in film, that may be willing to work for a project that's very close to us, that we have big aspirations for, in hopes to maybe pushing it further into something bigger. We can push this film, this project, this episodic, as an independent that we're trying to push out of San Francisco State, a bunch of emerging graduates trying to make a name for themselves, trying to do something that's never really been done on television before. So funding for this project will primarily be based in two sections. We're going to try and reach out to websites like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, show our idea, maybe create a small teaser trailer, something like that, trying to generate as much revenue that we can from those do-it-yourself websites. And the next half is we're gonna try and go for private investors, mostly friends and family, who want to support us, want to be part of this project, want to help us succeed and hopefully make something out of this. As donation incentives for people from Kickstarter and private investors, we were thinking small money donations, $1 to $50 would be a special thanks credit at the end of the first episode. Any donation over $50 would also receive the special thanks, in addition to an HD copy of the episode on DVD, and bigger donations would receive both of those incentives and an executive producer credit. So the risk for this film, honestly, there isn't much risk for a privately financed film. We pretty much are just going to have to tell the investors that they most likely aren't going to get their money back, because they are investing in such a small film. But there are incentives in a way that if the film were to be picked up by a network or a production company, we would try and at least give back the money that was donated. Alright, so when breaking down the budget, we felt the most important thing to focus on was, of course, the acting. Even though we are going local through SF Casting for the budget, we still wanted to make sure that they were compensated for their time and their effort. The second most important thing that we wanted to focus on for the budget is our camera. We decided that we wanted to shoot on a Red Epic. The justification for this is that even though we are emerging filmmakers and we have a small budget, we want to have the best production quality possible for this film. We are shooting to sell, and we also believe that this film is good enough to garner that attention, so we wanted to make sure that the quality was the best that we could get. The highest allocation of our money to our budget, we are putting most of it into equipment rental. This includes the Red Epic because we are renting some Zeiss CP2 primes and some Canon L series lenses, and also we wanted to put as much money as we could into lighting and sound just so we can get the highest production value possible on the 10% of an actual episode budget. Breaking down a budget for 25 grand is not an easy task, especially when there's so many factors that you have to put in for costs. So we tried to plan accordingly, try to cut corners where we could. Our best friend and group member Mike was the writer and creator of the story, so he doesn't want profit unless there's profit taken. Chris Allen would do most of the directing and half of the producing. I would probably do the other half of the producing and the DP and camera work. So, a lot of the work that would require crew is cut due to mostly us doing the heavy lifting and friends and networking people, maybe hopefully working for free as well. So for budgeting our production side, which includes our department, camera rental, lighting, sound, vehicle rental, etc., we are approximately around 14 grand. For post-production, I would do most of the editing, so that's cost cut right there. We are hiring a composer and a sound mixer, which would cost us around $1 grand.
Our overall end goal was to have this TV show aired on a network, but we're open to new platforms. Netflix not only is a content provider, but now they're starting to produce their own content. I mean, even Kevin Spacey has an upcoming show on Netflix called House of Cards. The Arrested Development series is going to be picked up for one more season that would be aired exclusively on Netflix. But first, initially, we would put our movie onto YouTube. Part of our distribution plan would be to have local events that will screen Pleasant Avenue, try to gain a local audience, especially in the community that the film would be made for. At first, we would solely rely on word of mouth to market this film, telling friends of friends to watch it. Having it on YouTube, it's easy access to watch it. We would rely on family members to watch it, and just hoping that they spread the word. We would email publications, specifically gay publications, and hope that they watch the film, they like the film, they review the film. Hopefully to spread publicity, and free publicity at that, for us. Again, we're independent filmmakers and we're doing everything ourselves, so we're going to try to do as much as possible. Hopefully we would garner the opportunity to submit to local film festivals. Again, gay film festivals like the Frameline San Francisco International LGBT Film Festival. It is a TV show, but we could market it as a film initially or a pilot to a TV show. and again, this would, you know, pay for low-cost marketing for us. As Mike stated earlier, this show would probably first attract just the gay youth audience. But that's not our intentions. Our intentions is for everybody to see it. We know the content provides enough for a broader audience. We hope that people can see themselves within the TV show. You know, traditional media like TV may not last much longer. Society is now geared toward having content on demand, you know, being able to watch it when you want to watch it. And having our TV show on YouTube or Netflix, they'll have that option. And having Pleasant Avenue on YouTube or Vimeo, it's a free way to have your content seen. Just sending a link out, getting people to watch it. It doesn't cost a thing.
First and foremost, this is a San Francisco story because having lived outside the city, I know that people have a lot of preconceptions when they look out west about who we are as people. And I wanted to show the San Francisco that I know, the San Franciscans that I know. But that one, I mean, the story itself centers on a modern take on the gay community, that I see as it exists now. That's living with the post-AIDS pandemic. I mean, it's still a part of the culture, but we're living in the aftermath of the devastation it caused. It's really a culture that's still defining itself, that's still coming into its own. And to see people rip it apart when it's really still in its infancy, you know? I mean, the gay movement as a cause has only been really in existence now since the 1960s, late 1960s, early 1970s. I mean, these stories still have relevance, you know, in a world where you see, you know, conservative media pundits, you know, take the culture to pieces. I mean, things like marriage, you know, I mean, that is a part of this culture defining itself. I mean, gay marriage, that is still very relevant to the United States. You know, we just saw Don't Ask, Don't Tell fall. And that's part of a culture finding itself. And if that isn't a part of the city's story, if that isn't ingrained in the culture of San Francisco, I mean, what is, you know? And that's ultimately one of the themes of the story is identity, you know? Not just the main character's search for identity, but a culture's search for identity and definition. I mean, no gay person could say, this is what it means to be gay. Because there's, as anyone knows, there's so much to the culture. I mean, for me, I'm in the midst of it, you know? I'm in the midst of defining myself, not just as a person, but as a gay man. I know I can't say what it is. For me, it's just as confusing, I'm sure, as it is for, you know, someone living in Wyoming, you know, who turns on the television and doesn't really see his story being told, or her story for that matter. I mean, me, do I want marriage? Do I want children? I don't know. That's a personal experience. It's a personal journey for anyone to figure that out. And the community itself is dealing with that, you know? And if we could, artistically, you know, which is, you know, in the grand scheme of things, a very insignificant way of dealing with these issues, but if we could artistically try and help define that, try and help push that movement forward, I mean, I think really that could be, I mean, on, you know, this small level, an achievement, just for us as storytellers, you know, that we could take some part in helping a community to realize its dreams.